All right, hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about growing trade routes in Unit 2. We're particularly going to be talking about the Silk Roads, the Indian Ocean Trade, and the Trans-Saharan Trade Network. I'm kind of going to be talking about them jointly together because many of the developments are shared between them. So one of the most dominant and most impactful developments of the period from 1200 to 1450 is the interconnectedness and exchange that's brought about by these growing Afro-Eurasian trade networks that we can see here. So why now? Why is there this increase in intensified trade at the time? What are the causes of this increased trade? So first and foremost, what College Board wants you to know is that there is an increased demand for luxury goods. So an increased demand for luxury goods necessitates that there's a certain level of wealth, right? That there are people who can afford luxury goods. So that means that there's greater specialization of labor. That means that there is a solid, stable economy, right? That there is a hierarchy, that there are plenty of people who can farm and there is enough food. And then because there's enough food, other people can do other things and they can grow wealthy, right? So we need hierarchy, wealth, and stability for these luxury goods. So what kind of luxury goods are people interested in at the time? Well, one of the major trade routes that we're talking about is the Silk Road. So it probably won't come as a big surprise to you that silk fabrics, silk clothing, also silk textiles and rugs and other forms of textiles and rugs are in high demand, right? And they're being shipped both on the Indian Ocean trade route and in the Silk Road and in the Trans-Saharan trade route. Other items that are really popular include glass and porcelain products, right? Think about it. You're living a particular type of life, if that's something you're interested in, right? Decorative items, those are in high demand as well. And so they're traveling from China and India and the Middle East across Central Asia into Europe, into kind of Central Europe and into Africa as well. One of the other causes of increased trade at this time period is the fact that there are safe and secure trade routes, right? One of the problems when we talked about Europe, that there was small scale, not long distance trade, was that there wasn't an overarching state or empire to control the trade routes and keep them safe. Well, around 1200, right, the people who are in charge are the Abbasid Caliphate. And here's the Abbasid Caliphate in green. And you can see how many of those Silk Road trade routes really crisscross through the empire. So it's nice, it's safe, it's protected. As the Abbasid Caliphate starts to break down, we can see that there are other states that emerge across these same trade routes. They're growing wealthy by controlling them, and so there's a lot of demand for them, but they also help keep it safe, right? They can essentially be the police to help make sure there aren't bandits who are attacking people. And then as those dissolve and fragment, we get the Mongol Empire. And the Mongol Empire stretches all the way from China to Europe. And because of that, they are really dominant over most of the Silk Road trade. And they also profit a ton from the Silk Road trade. And so it's in their best interest to protect it. And so this is really one of the high points of Silk Road trade that we see. So there's kind of the initial downturn over the Silk Roads when the Mongols are conquering because it's violent and stuff. And then after things settle and the Mongols are more established, they really support merchants. One of the other items that is going to make Silk Road trade, Indian Ocean trade, and Trans-Saharan trade flourish during this time period is the development of new technology. So over the Silk Roads, one of the major new technologies is the magnetic compass, right? The spread of the magnetic compass from China, you can see it written here in Chinese characters. They help facilitate, which is an important word for AP World History, they help make easier trade across land. So across other overland trade routes, particularly the Silk Road and Trans-Saharan Trade Network, are the Arabian camel, seen here, and then also the camel saddle. So you have to kind of get creative with how you ride a camel, right? The humps make it difficult. So the camel saddle is a major development that helps facilitate trade. Then the Arabian camel moves from the Arabian Peninsula into West Africa. It makes travel across the Sahara way easier. So these things help those trade routes flourish. Then, if we're talking about overseas trade, one of the major technologies we need to talk about is the astrolabe. So the astrolabe, seen here, enables people to, if they're on a ship and it's nighttime, you still have to be able to direct where you're going and make small adjustments. They enable you to kind of set course by the stars, astro, right? And so because of that, you can kind of keep better track of where you're going. Other items that are important for trade overseas, seen here. This is a dhow ship with a lateen sail. So dhow ships are Persian and Arab ships. They're smaller. They have kind of shallow hulls, shallow drafts, I guess would be the technical term. So they can go into rivers, they can go into ports. And then here we see this triangular lateen sail. Super important. It enables you to direct where you want to go much more easily because it has a boom. So if any of you have ever sailed, you know that there's a boom that the sail is attached to, and you can kind of swing it back and forth so you can catch the wind and help use the wind to take you where you want to go instead of kind of being at the mercy of the wind. Other ships that are important seen here, this is a Chinese junk. So in English, obviously junk has a bad connotation, but a Chinese junk is a huge ship in the Chinese fleet that is used really for trading, and they kind of have these telltale dragon-esque sails. So speaking of new technologies and looking for it, here on this image, we can see a sailing ship in the Indian Ocean carrying pilgrims to Mecca. So one of the things that tells me is that there has been the spread of Islam around the Indian Ocean. And so there are lots of Muslims, and so these Muslims have to then go to Mecca. The other thing that I can see is it really helps me see like how they're sailing. Like, look, here are the sails and how they're controlling them and how they're working them, and all the technology that is necessary to really allow trade to grow on the Indian Ocean. So another thing that is important for allowing trade to flourish during this time period is improved commercial or business practices. So one of the first important developments that I want to talk to you about is called a caravanserai or a caravanserai. And basically what that is it is a hotel, a motel for people on a camel caravan. So it has rooms, it has places for you to store your camels. And it's really kind of revolutionary because people were like, oh, I don't want to just like sleep out on the Silk Road. And so it also enables cities to grow because then it's an attraction, right? That there's a hotel or this caravanserai in your city. The caravans are likely to pass through. People are going to trade. People are going to buy stuff. It's going to allow everybody to flourish. One of the other developments, and these both come out of China, but they are bills of exchange and paper money. So bills of exchange are like IOUs. So basically say that rather than carrying around all of this metal currency, which is not only heavy, but also attracts unwanted attention, I like write you a check. And then you can take your check from the city where we did our trade, and you can take it to the next city you're going to, and you can turn it in at essentially a bank, and they then will give you the currency. So that way you just carry around this check, kind of for lack of a better word, and then it's a lot easier. The other thing, right, is paper money, which is what you see here. And this, I mean, it's light, it's easy. It also enables the state, like the political entity, to create kind of a currency, right? To create an official document that gives them more control over the economy, which is one of the reasons that we have states in the first place. So it works for everybody. Also, you really need to know about the environment. If you are traveling either overland via the Silk Road or on the ocean, knowing about the environment is going to be important for your trade, right? It's going to keep you safe. It's going to keep you efficient. And the major development that happens in this time period is knowledge of the monsoon wind patterns. So if you're traveling on the Indian Ocean, which you can see this kind of rim of Indian Ocean trade is extremely, extremely, extremely important. You have to know when it's safe to travel, right? And one of the things about the monsoon wind patterns is that they blow, right, this way from November to February and this way from April to September, right? So if you are going right? You're leaving Calicut and you're kind of going this way, November to February over the winter. Well, you're stuck until April. And then in April, you can go back the other way. So this is going to cause a lot of cultural changes because people from one part of the world are trapped in another part of the world for months at a time. So it causes a lot of cultural blending, or a word we call syncretism. And also it causes a lot of diasporic communities. So basically, right, if I am an Indian or a Persian trader, I could be living for half of the year in Africa. So maybe I meet somebody and I get married and I start a family. I convert religions, or I just interact with a lot of different people. So there's a lot of cultural changes that happen because of the monsoon winds. So not only is it good to know about them, so that way like you can sail at the right period of time, but also it just changes a lot of things. Back. Let's see if we can find Hormuz real quick. Yep. Here it is. Okay. Let's look at that in this document. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to read the source line. So this is Abd al-Razak Samarkandi. He's a Muslim ambassador, so he's kind of like a diplomat, right? And it's a historical chronicle that he writes around 1442. Let's see what he has to say. He says, in pursuance of the orders of God, I received orders from Shah Rukh, which was a Muslim ruler who governed parts of Iran and Central Asia, to depart for India. His Majesty provided me with provisions and post horses, and I began my journey from southern Khorasan, arriving at the port of Bandar Abbas in southern Iran before departing by ship to the port city of Hormuz. So, Hormuz is a port situated in the middle of the Persian Gulf and does not have an equal on the surface of the globe. Wow, he's really glowing reviews here. Merchants from Egypt, Syria, Anatolia, Iraq, Iran, Central Asia, China, India, and Southeast Asia bring rare and precious articles by sea. So we can see the importance, luxury goods on these Silk Roads. We can also see how much cultural blending is going to take place because these merchants are coming from all over and they're descending upon Hormuz. Bargains are made either by money or by exchange, right? So bills of exchange, like we talked about. Persons of all religions, right? We're kind of creating these syncretic cultures, these blended cultures are found in this city. And no injustice is permitted towards any person whatsoever. I stayed here for 2 months until the favorable time came for departing by sea. Oh my gosh, I wonder why. Probably because of the monsoon winds. We then sailed from Hormuz to Calicut along the southwestern coast of India. Like Hormuz, Calicut brings together merchants from every city and from every country, right? So again, we see these diasporic or people from all over the world communities being formed. We see luxury goods being traded. So we see a lot of the factors that led to increased trade in this period represented in this document. They're from maritime countries, especially from East Africa. So we can see how included East Africa is in this. From time to time, ships arrive there from Mecca and other parts of Arabia. The town is inhabited mostly by Hindus, but it contains a considerable number of Muslims who are permanent residents, right? This is that diasporic community that I am talking about, diasporic communities, and have built 2 mosques in which they meet every Friday to pray. So we can really see a lot of evidence in this document for all of the really causes and effects of increased trade in the period.